We'll start off the evening because we've got a lot to get through, even though there are people turning up. We'll start with the annual general meeting of the engineering group. And so first of all, housekeeping. Can you turn all cameras and mics off, please? I've tried to mute everybody because we've got some presentations. As part of the AGM, we will need to vote. If you can do that by raising your hand, and if you have questions, if you could submit them through the chat, or I might periodically open the mic. I don't believe we've had any apologies for absence. Tom, Hunt, or Frankie, do you know any better?
I know of one. Frank Netterberg has apologised.
Okay. Thank you, Frankie.
I don't have any, Ursula.
Cool. Thanks, Tom. Right, second item on the agenda is the formal acceptance of the minutes of the last AGM held on the 23rd of September last year. Can somebody propose acceptance by raising a hand? Excellent, thank you. That was Alex Conrad and seconded. Whoever that was, Stephanie. Excellent, thank you. Okay, let me share my screen, and then Alex, if you can present your.
Yep. Hello, everyone. I'm presenting the Treasurer's report for the year up to 31st of December 2020. As expected, there was not too much traffic in this year, unfortunately. We know all the reasons. So we had an income substantially lower than usually, with £13,000-ish. Expenditures were significantly higher, with £26,974. So quite a deficit the year 2020. End of year balance, obviously that reflects it. 2019 we had 27,000 more or less in the bank, and end of 2020 substantial loss, lower at 13,000. There's obviously nothing what was expected after that year. Should be noted that the UBS fund is not included in this value, which gives us always a bit of leeway. So we still have funds as advised by the GLSOC, which stood at on the 29th of June 2020 at £30,375. That was at that time a slight loss to the year before, but we've clawed some of the previous profits back. So we're now probably looking more towards 35,000. We'll get a validation every couple of months, so that hopefully we've got this back on track. The significant sources for the income expenditure, there was obviously not a lot of income, unfortunately. There were a couple of sponsorship incomes through conference and Glossip, evening meetings that were still coming in beginning of the year. Some of those will roll over into the next events, so there's a bit of it's a bit fluid at the moment. Conference and evening meetings, £126 income, and the IAG fees, which we use as just a transit payment, which will be paid out into the IAG account, came in. You'll see in the expenses this went out as well, again, so there's not a real income. Other expenses there's some committee expenses through domain the early careers day at 766. Big costs were the room hire for the Royal Institution, which is now still or could be rolled over into this year. So there will be less outgoing for this Glossop. There were a couple of expenses for the field trips and the speakers. The X Fund paid out £1,610 that year. And Grand Forum, there was still an old payment made, which we have now agreed with the Geological Society to get back. That was an erroneous invoice, so that will be and has already in fact gone into our account. So this is just as well a transit payment. In terms of income, there was obviously the Glossop 2020 had to be postponed, the field trip postponed, the X conference unfortunately in Cambridge as well postponed. So these will be the big costs, but as well the big income for the coming year. In terms of the financial year that is coming, we're trying still to review the sustainability and the costs of the Glossop, especially where to host it, because there's in the last years that was one of the significant loss makers, which I think we were happy to take because it's a great event, but that will need probably a bit more closer look over the next years. We will continue to invest as much as we can into these funds. They've performed quite strongly, so we'll keep that as much as we can, but probably at some point we'll be probably forced to bring something into the actual X accounts from the funds. Otherwise we're just looking at little bits and pieces here and there to reduce costs. Obviously the going online has helped a bit, which is obviously a good thing, but on the other side, obviously we're trying to bring it back to have a real good event. So we're looking at a couple of angles on that. And then the point 4, the responsibility of budgeting. I think that has become really quite smooth and well driven. That our subcommittees now run the overall summaries of these events and report back to the treasurer. So that should be just maintained and potentially improved on the odd event. So that's me done.
Excellent, many thanks, Alex. Can I have somebody to propose acceptance of your Treasurer's report? Thanks, Ian. Seconded. Thanks, Tim. Is there any questions or comments for Alex? I'll take the deafening silence as a no. For those who've just joined, we are recording, and that's the one I want. Cool. So, as there's no questions for Alex, we'll proceed on to the Chair's report. I thought while I was doing my Chair's report, it might be more interesting for you to actually see some slides, and you can see what we've been up to. Come on, there we go. Excellent. Right. Where's my report gone? Chair's report. There we go. Okay. So hopefully this will work. Right. So report of the Chair to the AGM. The engineering group of the Geological Society is a where have we gone? there you are. Constituted specialist group of the Geological Society. The engineering group promotes the science of engineering geology by providing technical events, producing special publications, recognising excellence and collaborating with other ground-related organisations, specialist and regional groups. As you've heard, from a meetings perspective, COVID continues to disrupt. Let's see if I can move. I've gone. No. No. There we go. Meetings. There we go. Right. COVID continues to disrupt our in-person events, some of which have been repeatedly postponed. Evening events continue virtually, technological glitches aside. These have been recorded and are available in the Engineering Group YouTube channel, which you can see in the bottom left-hand corner. In addition to the Glossip meeting, we ran a series of interesting and informative events, many of which were joint meetings. Thank you to everyone involved in the meeting, whether convening or presenting, for all their hard work. Our meetings programme for 2022 is taking shape, and if you have ideas for a meeting or would like to be involved either in organising or presenting at one of our meetings, please get in touch. We're always keen to host joint meetings with regional and other specialist groups. Let's move on. Item 3, the Glossip Medal Lecture and Engineering Group Award. The 2020 Glossip meeting by our 21st Glossip medalist David Shawston on tools of the trade, engineering geology and the geoscience time machine has been postponed to the 24th of November 2021. The lecture will still be held at the Royal Institution. However, unfortunately, our catering venue have cancelled at short notice, so there'll be no post-Glossip meal. I'd also like to mention that Professor Paul Marinos, who you can see top centre, has unfortunately died in recent days. He delivered the 6th Glossip Lecture in 2002, titled Ongoing Challenges in Engineering Geology for Tunnelling in Difficult Ground. And our sympathies go to his family and friends. Let's see. Yep, we go. No, come back. Field meetings and the annual conference. Our planned field meeting to Somerset was held on the 2nd to the 4th of October. The weekend began with a presentation by Graham Hickman, Chair of the Bath Geological Society, on the geology and geomorphology of Bath and North East Somerset. The first day was centred around the engineering geology of canals and the legacy of William Smith, and the site visits were led by Vicky Corcoran, who's in amongst the throng somewhere. Oh yeah, she's just there at the back. The second day, there we go, that's one of the canals. I have no idea why that file has become corrupted, but apparently it has. The second day was commemorated the work of the late Professor Brian Hawkins through his study of the history of slope instability and how it has impacted the development of Bath and the surrounding area. The site visits were led by Dr. Kevin Privet, Glossip Lecturer and former chair of the engineering group. Our thanks go to the 3 experts for their considerable contributions to the weekend. Additionally, we are very grateful, in fact, to the continued efforts of David Giles in his coordination of the field trips, organising accommodation, transport, catering venues, field trip leads and production of very comprehensive handouts. The EGGS annual conference at Christ College, Cambridge has been postponed again to April 22. The theme of the event is unchanged and is the role of the engineering geologist in the climate change challenge. We move on to working parties and publications. We have 2 working parties that are nearing completion. The Engineering Geology of Groundwater in Design and Construction, chaired by Ian Duncan, from which you'll hear shortly, and offshore engineering geology, geomorphology and geohazards, chaired by Chris Martin, and you'll hear from them in the first half of next year. We have two new working parties that are just starting up. There's the engineering geology of weathering, chaired by Dr. James Lawrence, and nearshore and coastal engineering geology, geomorphology and geohazards, chaired again by Chris Martin. We'd like to express our thanks to the respective chairs of the working parties and the working party members for their fantastic contributions to these important documents. We'd also like to thank the employers of the working party members, as without their generosity, the special publications would not exist. Quarterly Journal of Engineering Geology and Hydrogeology continues to be an internationally recognised and respected publication. The board always welcomes new content, especially those aligned with the recent series of thematic issues. And we'd like to thank Jane Dottridge and the rest of the editorial board for their work for the journal, including Helen Floyd Walker, journal manager, and also Dr. Bethan Phillips, who's the commissioning editor, and her remit includes the special publications. Moving on to schools, universities and training. Yes. We're keen to support the Society in their outreach matters, including attending careers fairs. We've appointed Dr. James Lawrence as academic liaison, not only to inform and promote our involvement in initiatives to address the falling student numbers, but also to promote engineering geology, in particular to undergraduate courses. We'd like to congratulate Professor Bill Murphy at the University of Leeds, which you can see bottom right, for his recent promotion to Professor of Engineering Geology. And we'd also like to congratulate Imperial College for the launch of their new course on soil mechanics and engineering geologists. Both represent beacons of light in these darker times of closing courses. The engineering group has expressed its disappointment directly to the schools concerned. This year, the engineering group began a series of training courses in collaboration with the Geological Society. The first course was in 13 parts and covered geohazards, with more to come. Engineering group has links with other organisations. It's the UK branch of the International Association of Engineering Geology and the Environment, IAEG, and Dr. Helen Reeves continues to be our UK representative. Their regional conference in Athens was rearranged for last week. The engineering group continues to represent the Geological Society on the executive committee of the British Geotechnical Association, the Ground Forum and the UK Register of Ground Engineering Professionals, which is the logos that you see on your screen. Society matters. Nomination for the Society's Medal and Awards for 2022 were open until yesterday. And we would like to congratulate Dr. Helen Reeves, who was the 2021 Koch Medal recipient. The engineering group continued to be represented on the science committee by Michael Turner, who was extremely proactive in attending meetings and providing a conduit of information to and from the Society until he stepped down before the summer. Thomas Lees will represent the engineering group in the restructured science committee forthwith. This year, was the inauguration of the Jeremyingham Fund, who you can see top right, which is administered by the Geological Society. The fund provides £2,000 a year to support research in the field of engineering geology, with preference being given to the study of construction materials and/or research incorporating the use of petrological techniques. The 2021 fund was awarded to Ming Chit Fergus Cheng of Arabs for their research being carried out on the Bringelly Shale in Australia in order to allow increased material research reuse in earthworks. The 2022 fund application window is currently open until the 4th of February 2022, and we'll continue to send out reminders until just before. As ever, none of our activities would be possible without the wider staff and officers of the Society, so I would like to thank the Executive Secretary, the Conference Office and all the staff at Burlington House for their support over the last year. Home straight now. Ex-Committee. The ex-committee committee meetings continued virtually throughout COVID restrictions, and it is intended that virtual meetings will continue. This allows committee members to be based outside of commuting distance from central London, and as a result we now have members based in Glasgow, Manchester, Birmingham, Wales and Dorset. This is to the benefit of the committee by allowing a more diverse membership. The committee has spaces for new members, and anyone interested in joining us should contact either myself or the group email listed on the JOLSOC website. We've spent part of the last year consolidating our procedures, and this is primarily to ensure that we appropriately support the Geological Society in its role as a charity. Remits have been drawn up for all committee roles, both existing and new, to provide clarity and direction. Additionally, a new procedure has been drawn up for the appointment of Vice Chair, and this will be used for the first time in the coming year. The engineering group strategy has been updated. This was previously updated in 2006. Our priorities for the next 5 years include increasing use of technological advancements to implement multi-venue streaming to or from other organisations, thereby strengthening ties with regional and or international organisations and promoting engineering geology to a wider audience. Establishing links with them and other international organisations. Proactively supporting GSL Careers Days to promote engineering geology and to assist in efforts to increase students' numbers. And lastly, to improve the diversity of the committee to better reflect the industry it serves. However, that being said, no willing volunteer will be turned away. So that's the update to the engineering group strategy. The continued success of the engineering group relies on the active participation of the committee members, and I am very grateful for their continued effort in making everything possible. I'd like to particularly thank the officers, John Davis, Vice Chair, Frankie Sykes, Secretary, and Alex Conrad, Treasurer. These roles demand quite a considerable effort, and thanks go to the individuals, affiliated organisations and their families for giving them the time and support to contribute so much. While we're on the subject of committee members, I'd like to mention the passing of Alan Foster, who died earlier this year on the 31st of May. Alan was an engineering geologist at BGS and instrumental in leading the setup of BGS National Landslides Database, and he also directed a number of key BGS research projects. He was an active member of the engineering group, including being secretary between 1992 and 1995. Thanks go to the various members of the subcommittees responsible for driving forward our programme of activities. Richard Seddon and his meetings subcommittee for ensuring our meetings programme is well planned. Emma Singleton and her publicity subcommittee, Lorraine O'Leary and David Roy, for ensuring that our events are well attended by promotion through the various social media platforms. Tom Morgan for heading up the Early Careers Group, supported by Harry Eadie and Johnny Neville. Lorraine O'Leary for organising the Glossip Lecture and Award in 2020 and 2021. Dave Giles, Don Davis and Amy Flynn for their work in rearranging the annual conference. We have to say goodbye to a few committee members this year. Richard Brown, Anthony Allen, Ed Long and Rachel Samuel. Johnny Neville and Harry Eadie have stood down from the main committee to focus on the Early Careers Committee. In addition, Michael Turner has stood down from the Science Committee. I'd like to thank you for your contribution over the last few years, and it's been much appreciated. Frankie Sykes is also standing down as secretary, and I would like to thank her personally for organisation, support and energy. She certainly keeps me on the straight and narrow. Right, the last thing on the agenda is to welcome new members to the committee this year. Would the audience have any issues with me appointing them en masse, or would people like to vote them in individually?
Mass is fine.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Ian. So the following have been appointed as officers which require ratification. Tom Pickard, he will be joining us shortly as treasurer, and currently shadowing Alex Conrad, who will be standing down before Christmas. Also appointed is Tom Hunt. He will be appointed as secretary from 2021. Proposers, put your hand up. Thank you, Ian. Seconders, thank you, Tim. The following members require election, having been previously co-opted since the last AGM. Dr. James Lawrence, David Roy, Scott O'Neill, James Todd, Emily Riley, Elena Grimaldi, Thomas Lees, Emma Singleton and Stephanie Boffey-Rawlings. Proposers? Thanks, John. Seconder? Thanks, David. If anybody else would like to be involved in the running of the committee, please let us know. The engineering group survives by the continued enthusiasm of our volunteers, and we always need proactive committee members. So that's the end of the chair's report. Would somebody like to propose acceptance? Thank you, David, and seconded by John, Ian Duncan.